Good evening, Jairo. How are you?
Hello, teacher.
How are you doing? How was your day? Do you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
hi
yes,
teacher.
yes, we
Okay.
do.
Okay, good. How was your day, Jairo?
Oh, it was long, quite long, but nice. It happens to be today. Parents were bringing school their school supplies, and it's always time consuming and energy consuming, but it was okay. It was nice.
Okay. So, students are going to start classes next week?
Next Monday, exactly. So
All
it
right.
seems to be everything is ready, and well, let's see.
Okay, good. So, what did you do on vacations?
Well, the thing is, I only had a week because my contract is kind of administration. So they give us the first week of July. We had it off. So we spent a couple of days down there in Ibagué, a couple of days, the weekends, and then we came back
And that's it. Okay. Well,
and back to work.
yeah. So we have to enjoy the next holidays because September doesn't have any holiday.
Yes, that's gonna be. It's gonna be actually in 2 weeks time, right? On the
Yes,
17th,
the
17th,
19th.
and 19th.
Exactly. Right.
We still haven't made any plans, but yes, we have to make the most out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because September is a month for a lot of work. Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, Leonardo, nice to meet you. I think it's the first time I have you in my classes.
Yes, it's the first time. How are you?
Good.
Good, good. Okay.
Are you a teacher? Yeah.
Yes, I'm currently working in Colegio Alemán. I've been there for 9 years already. As a matter of fact, today was our first day back, and it's hard.
Sure.
Unlike Jairo, I had vacations from June 26th till today.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah, so it was nice. I didn't go out because my wife didn't have vacation, but I was home with my daughter and I relaxed. I mean, I changed routines. That for me was just enough. Changing routines.
yeah. Well, great. Now you're back and you have to.
Yes, back work and study.
Yeah, both. Good.
Yes, yes,
They say a change is always a good rest.
yes. It is for me. It is.
Yeah, it is good to do something different.
Yes, I mean at least to just well, I still wake up early, but waking up and not rushing to leave, just turning on the TV, watching the news. For me, that's enough.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I agree.
Yes,
Stay
yes.
home is sometimes better than going to any other place.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree.
Good. Well, welcome. Catalina, welcome back.
Hi, teacher. How are you? Nice to see you again.
Well, welcome back. Uh, did you have vacations for your work?
I am never on vacations, teacher. With my kids for 1 week, and then I came back, and we are never closed at the tennis club.
Okay.
We
Good.
work every single day. We only close when it's Christmas and New Year. That's it.
All right. Well, I think we can start, although your classes have not joined yet. I think we can start now our tutoring session. Uh, as you read, the course is divided into two big topics: social linguistics, and for the second part is neuroeducation. So the first 4 weeks will be devoted to social linguistics, and the first task that you have was about important concepts. So we are going to talk tonight about how can we use that information for our role as teachers or for our classes. So I don't know if you remember some concepts, and I would like you to think about them and try to relate them with what we do in classes. How can we combine, or how can we apply social linguistics in our classes? Why do you think we need to study social linguistics to be English teachers or to do better our job?
Well, because it basically it defines the function of the language, and we teach a language.
Yeah, so we teach a language, and social linguistics is related to language, specifically what part of the language, what aspect of the language.
Well, I believe everything, since it's a second language, from speaking to reading, writing, grammar, all the rules.
Well, rules, yes, rules regarding society, rules regarding words that in society we agree that mean something. You know that we have verbal communication and non-verbal communication, and both might be different in some ways from country to country. So, for example, North American people don't like to be so close each other, so their physical contact is not the same as the one that we have in Colombia.
Yes.
That regarding nonverbal communication, and that is important if we are in class with students from other countries, because we need to have in mind what for them is appropriate or inappropriate regarding proxemics, which is that approach, physical approach that we have with them. Regarding nonverbal communication, well, again, thinking about North American people, you know that for them, they are very careful about using words that can stereotype people. So they try, sometimes they use some words like disabled people, but then they might have like discussions about how appropriate is that word to refer to that group of people, and they might change the word for a new one that they consider is more appropriate and less irrespectful, let's say. That doesn't happen here. I mean, we are not that careful about using words compared to North Americans. So those rules regarding the use of words and regarding nonverbal communication are what social linguistic studies, and is related to what we teach. I would like you to think about words that you use to greet friends, family, colleagues, teachers, and acquaintances. So could you give me an example of those words that you use?
Words like hey, hi, hello,
What's up?
Right?
Good afternoon. Good morning.
how's it going?
I mean, I think there's this difference between formal and informal language, depending how much how your relationship with the person.
Yeah, so level of formality or informality is related to social linguistics, but also uh, we can consider that depending on the area where you live, the region, we might use a different word to greet people. For example, in Antioquia, they don't say hola. It's not common. They use other words to greet when you are greeting a friend.
Howdy.
For example, howdy is other word, right? That can be classified as an informal way to greet people. But if you listen to somebody, not only because of the accent, but also because of the words the person uses, you can classify that person. You can identify the person as somebody who belongs to a certain group of people, meaning a region, meaning that is part that of a group of professionals, for example, that work with health or with business. So depending on the way the words people used to talk, besides their accent and pronunciation, we identified it and classified it, let's say, as somebody who belongs to certain place or certain community. That's also part of social linguistics. Uh, let's see. What words or expressions come to your mind about some those Colombian expressions that you might find difficult to translate into English because because uh, there is
They
not
have
an
no
exact translation.
translation.
Exactly, there is not an exact translation into English or the opposite.
Mhm.
Ex-
You, for example,
Okay, right. Cubo is really informal and is I use that one for a person who is very close to me, with my family members or friends that are very close to me. So we have a level of informality and also depending on the relationship that we have with the person we talk to, we use one word or the other. Okay, other not only regarding greetings but other words that you might find difficult to translate from English into Spanish or the opposite.
Well,
but
I have
only when you greet.
No, not only for the situation of greeting, but any other situation.
well,
Okay, like jinx, for
Jinx.
example.
Which one? Could you repeat, please?
Jinx, jinx.
Uh-huh. Could you spell it, please?
I think it's JINX.
Yeah.
When you say something the same time the other person is saying it, so you say jinx.
Okay, right.
But I think it's with J. I think I don't,
Yeah, it is.
I really
It's
don't know.
it's
It's
with
with
J.
J. I think.
Yeah, it's with
Yeah.
J.
All right, good. Any other word
Um,
Well, I have
or
one that
expression?
I have an expression and my sister and I. Well, I grew up in Miami, and when we say hi to each other, even though it's considered to some point racist, but my sister and I we say hi to each other. What's up, nigga? And it's incorrect, but that word can be even translated.
So, okay. So also words that we create with people that are very close to us, that
Yes.
only because of an anecdote, because something that happened before, only the two people know what that means. Right. Other
is that
case,
like we consider, for example, the slang as something that is not translatable?
yeah. So here I have an example. So in the Spanish, dar papaya. So the possible translation
Yeah. So, for example, I don't know.
different.
If they,
Catalina, yes, other example.
Yes, for example, in Spanish, when people say su merced,
Uh-huh, good. Yeah, so how can you translate that? Because it's very, it's part of a region of Colombia. So, and the connotation that it has is when you are being respectful, and if you say some merced, you know that you have any relation with or connection with that part of the country, with Boyacá, right? Because costeños don't say su merced, and people at the south of the country don't say that word. So su merced is also a word that is not easy to translate, and help, and any person who uses is going to be identified as somebody who has a relation or connection with that part of the country.
teacher, also when we talk about food, for example, it's really hard to do like the translation, let's say, of sancocho.
Exactly. Mostly words related to food are difficult to translate because uh, food has a very strong connection with culture and with the area where that food is cooked. So you might find you might find that many typical food don't have a translation into the other languages because it's from the region, from the country where it is made. So again, this connection between language and culture is also a topic that is studied by social linguistics, right? And that in our classes, they need to make our students aware of that connection, as well as in the same, or thinking about that we have those differences in Colombia regarding regions and words, regions and expressions. We find the same cases in other countries or among countries where English is spoken. So expressions that are used in Australia might be different to the ones that are used in USA and different to the words that are used in Great Britain. And in the three countries are English is spoken, that there are variations regarding the countries, or into the same country there are variations regarding regions, not only in terms of vocabulary but also in terms of accent, and some sometimes in terms of structure. So you might find that black people in the USA have some not only different pronunciation and vocabulary, but they sometimes have different uh, formation of the sentence, which is not bad, but is like a connection with that region where they are. The same connection that people from our regions have when they use their words, when they use Ave Maria, or when they use su merced, or when they use aha, that is a very typical word from the coast. So that connection is studied by social linguistics, and we need to become students. We help the students become aware of that, uh, those aspects of the language. Do you have any other example regarding language and culture and expressions that are difficult to translate?
Yes, teacher. For example, in England, they use well, first they don't say, they say the tube to the metro,
Exactly.
and you say, for example, mind the gap, which they don't do in the US when you go to the metro station.
Uh-huh. Right. And if you use those words when you talk to an North American person, he or she is going to identify you somebody who had any connection with British people. And an anecdote. So I traveled, and then when I came back, I talked to a person from London, and he told me, please don't speak American, because I had an experience, a living experience in USA. So I got, when I just arrived, uh, I have the words and pronunciation from there. And he didn't want me to have that. But it wasn't possible because my experience was in that country. So again, pronunciation, vocabulary, and even the nonverbal communication is going to help others identify us as somebody who belongs to a certain community. And we might decide use some expressions, some ways of talking to because we want others to identify us as somebody who belongs to a certain community. Let's think about the social classes that we have in Colombia that are very, let's say, uh,
Teacher, for example, here in Colombia, well, I'm from Cali. The way that people from Cali, we talk really different from with the people from here. When I arrived here 18 years ago, and it was really difficult to understand some words because they here have a different meaning that we have in Cali.
right? So
For example,
that's an
yeah,
example of culture, the relationship between culture and language, and it's an example of Spanish variation into the same country. And I guess that anytime you spoke when you arrived from Cali, you were identified as a person from there because of the words that you use and your pronunciation.
yeah.
Right. So let's connect that with the topic of identities. So we might have identities,
Teacher,
different
can I ask you a
identities.
question?
Yes, Leonard.
But right now, because I see it all the time, what about with the way the world is globalized with the internet, with all the music from, we have now K-pop coming in with our teens. And I remember reading an article many years ago that is not the Queen's English, that English is basically losing its identity, and every country has its own way of language, but we have people from all over the parts of the world wanting to speak like New Yorkers. Uh, Eventually, what's going to happen then with social linguistics there? It's going to evolve to something new, or is it still going to be the same?
Okay, well, social linguistics uh, uh, describes what happens in societies regarding the language that is spoken. Social linguistics don't make the rules. The rules are agreed by the same people that belong to the societies. So the same people uh, will start using or agree on the rules. Let's connect that with the idea of the social classes in our country. So some years ago, people who belong to high strata, they used to tutear, and that was like something that was common in that social class. Then it became more common that the other social people who belong to the other social strata uh, started to talk to each other using el tuteo. But uh, since the people from high social strata didn't want or didn't want to make the difference between the restaurant and the others, they changed the rule a little bit and they started to bustear among themselves to make the difference. So that is something that is not, the rule is not established by social linguistics, but by the same people who belong
Okay.
to the society.
Because now it's different. Now our kids in our, I mean, at least in my school, they want to talk like people from social statuses of 1 and 2, and they want to talk parce. So now it's backwards.
Yeah, that changes, and it changes all the time, and then that's why uh, la Real Academia de la Lengua Española, they annually they study how many people start using new words. If there is a word that is being used by a lot of people, they include that in the dictionary. So some years ago, uh, the word chévere was not in the dictionary. Now it is because it is used by a lot of people. Some years ago, the word caballero had a different meaning to what it is found in the dictionaries. So rules regarding the use of language are changing all the time, and the ones that decide on the rules are the people who use it. You have more comments about that or questions?
No. That's it. Thank you, teacher.
Well, you are welcome. So let's connect the idea of words use uh, and the verbal and non-verbal way to communicate with identities. So you read in the concept that identities are socially constructed because even if I use some words and a way to communicate because I want other people to identify myself as a teacher, as a person who knows about English, etc., in the role of teacher. Uh, the others, the ones who listen to me, have can classify uh, the communication and my let's say my come up with the idea that a person who communicates in a certain way belongs to a certain community. So I can try that others identify myself as an English teacher, but those others might identify myself as a different, a person with a different type of job. So in the society, I might have different roles as an English teacher, as a mother, as a daughter, etc. And in each situation and in each context, I might use different ways to communicate that help others identify myself and that I use to for others to identify me. So I don't know, some of you could probably mention some words that help, that identify you as teachers or that identify you as members of in your family as father or son or any uh, any let's say relation that you might have with somebody in your family. What words would you use? Would you say that identify yourself in those situations, in those contexts?
Well, if you're talking about a father, you can say my daughter, my students, and that. If you say my students, I believe everybody will understand that you're a teacher. If you were a doctor, you would say my patients are always bothering me at when I'm having lunch, for example. So that could be, you obviously assume that that person is a doctor.
But let's say that somebody, well, you are an English teacher, but How do you think your students identify you as a strict teacher, as a patient teacher? How do you think they identify you?
I think they identify me as a different teacher because I'm strict, but at the same time I have fun, and certain things are allowed, but there's just certain things that I won't permit. Disrespect. I can agree upon it if I had planned something for today, but the subject changes or some topic comes up where they need to clarify, then I can change the class and do something else.
Uh-huh. Okay, so that's what you think your students might, the way your students might identify you. Good.
Hmm.
I would like all of you to do a very short exercise. I would like you to watch the first 5 minutes of a video of a teacher, and I would like you to tell me the words uh, you use to describe that teacher. And then after that, I would like you to try to answer these questions about that teacher that you are gonna watch in the video, because that way we are gonna relate the idea of identities in a classroom and how or why it is important to study identities uh, in our job as English teachers. So let me. I'm gonna share with you the link. So just watch the first 5 minutes. Something is wrong with this. Okay. There you have the link. So please, as when you finish watching the first 5 minutes, we're gonna discuss the answers to the questions I'm going to share on the screen.
Teacher, sorry, I
Yeah,
am
you are lost?
the audio on the video. It's
It's your connection, Catalina,
no,
because it's difficult to understand what you.
I'm having problems with the audio on the video. I don't know if someone else is having the same problem as me.
Well, the volume is not very high, but maybe it's your connection because since we
Oh
started
my
the
God.
since we started the encounter, it has been difficult to understand what you say.
Yes, it's because Yes, I'm in a traffic jam getting home and I'm on my cell phone.
Okay,
Mhm.
that's the reason why. Okay, well, you cannot watch it,
Okay, teacher. Thank
and I
you.
will ask you other questions. Are you done, guys?
Yes, I already watched the first 5 minutes, and
Yes,
I think
teacher.
it was
Okay.
enough.
Yeah. Okay.
It's really boring.
Well, so that's something that you are gonna tell. I mean, we are gonna find out if you all agree with the same idea that you just mentioned, Catalina, that is boring. I don't know if everybody agrees on that. So that's also part of the culture. So for other for other people, he might not be a boring teacher. I don't know if for all of you you think the same.
Personally,
I think he needs a lot of more attitude to like the class.
Okay, Leonardo, what do you think?
Exactly. I think. Well, I don't feel that he's motivated, but he's also an older person. I maybe for me, I'm sorry, with all respect, he's more than 65 years old, and he doesn't. I don't feel he has the energy to work, but also the environment where he's teaching. You hear more
Hmm.
animals You hear animals. The board is not clear. I mean, it doesn't look like a classroom. It looks like it's in a house or some room, and that also
Like
affects the learning.
homemade.
He looks like a volunteer in another class.
Yeah,
Okay. What
like
else?
he's being obligated to be teaching what he's teaching. He's not
Yeah,
doing it
but
with
he's not a teacher.
passion.
Yeah, and he doesn't have
Yeah.
an order. Like what I saw in the first 5 minutes of the class, he's going from everywhere. This is a noun. This is a verb. You don't even understand. I can't even understand if the students actually know what he's talking about. I don't even. I feel they only understand 5% of the 95% that he's talking.
Yes, it's everything. Is
Yes.
the attitude, the hands uh, on the pockets. I don't know.
Okay. Alejandra, what do you think? And Jairo, what do you think about it?
Well, no,
What?
I agree. I agree with my classmates. Their comments. First question will be if he's actually a teacher. By his body language, I mean his movements, he would go from one side to another, crossing his arms. Sometimes it's like he wanted to say something. He was thinking too hard on how to say that. It seems to be he doesn't have much experience like being in front of a group of students. So I guess he didn't convey that that sense and feeling of being sharing with the group of students at no given time. He invited students or elicited or prompted students to speak the language. So I guess he didn't look comfortable, like if he was on a hot spot, as if he was feeling he was on the spotlights, and I don't know, he wasn't comfortable. That would
Okay.
be number one, and the way he was trying to help students understand what was written on the board, well, certainly he lacks some resources, right? He doesn't have the strategies to help students make something out of what he was saying. His tone of voice, I think he was too flat in the sense of his intonation. Um, but once again, you said it. It all depends on what the context is. Just as Leonardo was saying, I mean, there was this horrible barking, and when you looked at the surroundings, I mean, it wasn't like a real actual classroom. So the setting wasn't the best one, and I guess when a teacher isn't feeling comfortable around his students, well, not much happens in terms of learning.
Okay. Thank you. Alejandra?
Yes, I agree with my partners because it may be that the subject or the topic is interesting, but the man and the space don't motivate to learning. And apart from the noise of the animals, noise
All right. So we all agree that he lacks of teaching strategies or
Oh, he
teaching
does.
techniques. That's why some of you wonder if he's a teacher. Well, actually, he was the English teacher for a school, and he was in charge of a reading class. And he was trying to have his students learn some new words related to a text that he took to his class. But because of not only because of his nonverbal communication, because of his tone of voice, posture, his attitude, but also because of the type of activities and the organization of the classroom, we might conclude that he lacks of those teaching skills. That video was part of a research because the teacher was wondering why his students didn't participate in class, and
Hmm.
his students, his
Now
students,
we know.
well,
No
his
wonder.
students had a good English level. Those students had traveled or were part of a family where their parents were either English or American people. So uh, the language they have, the level of the language they have was high, but they didn't speak in class. Now we know that he lacks of some strategies and some teaching skills. What else do you think happened in terms of what he could make better in class to have his students speak?
Well, I guess using some eliciting, maybe some prompting, um, cause somehow he was just talking, as if he had been alone all along. He was just somehow providing definitions, and of course, I mean, he was not inviting anyone to do any talking. So maybe some eliciting and prompting strategies would help him out getting students engaged. Now that you mentioned that students have a certain high level of English, I don't know if that's challenging or actually interesting for a already independent speaker of a language to be I mean to receive definitions in a class.
Okay, very good. Any other comment about that?
But
Ti-
something to add to Haido. Haido, just because I believe, and I've learned that, just because a person speaks the language at home because his parents doesn't mean he knows the function
How
of
to teach.
language, how to use it grammatically. I have a question.
Mhm.
Does he have a lesson plan? Because obviously I don't see evidence. Is he following some? If it's a teacher at a school, did he have a yearly planning? Because in that class, it's not evident. There's no structure. He doesn't have a method.
What
Well, at least I don't see evidence.
what happened in his case is that he's American, North American, but he didn't start to be a teacher, so he doesn't have the teaching skills. He has the language, but he doesn't know how to teach.
Teacher, and that's a problem that they have here in Colombia a lot. Just because somebody speaks the language doesn't mean he can teach it. And that's why a lot of schools, I think, have made mistakes. Oh, he speaks English, he can teach.
Right? Okay, any other comment?
Teacher, I think the resources are are fundamental in a class. If you only have the board as he's doing it, and all with very bad letter and nothing to cultivate the student, they are not gonna pay attention. They're not gonna feel interest in the class.
Right. Something else?
Maybe,
I,
Well,
I, I agree with Leonardo because I think, as he said, to know a language is not implied that we can teach any language. For example, at the office, sometimes we have a Spanish class to foreigner students at the university, um, and sometimes I pay attention how the teacher teach Spanish, but honestly, I couldn't to teach Spanish because I don't know. Well, I know because it's my mother tongue, but if I'm going to teach Spanish, I couldn't. I don't know why to teach Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
and I do want to add something else. You cannot, regardless that he doesn't know or he doesn't look like he knows how to teach, he is trying, and he was trying to bring it to the level. For example, with the example of the relish, that you put relish on the hot dogs, and now that you told that it was for English speakers, the class, well, at least they could probably understand that a little better. So he actually did try to. So we can't say everything was bad.
Yeah, but well, he's
But
teaching
I think the worst mistake. Sorry, teacher. I
Catalan.
think the
No, go
worst
ahead.
mistake of a teacher is for the students to know that you have no idea of what you're doing. So if the students they are not gonna take you seriously if you are not in the right um, area, in the right spot of teaching to them.
Well, something that is important that Jairo mentioned is that uh, this teacher was giving definitions all the time. Uh, the way he planned his class was to choose a reading and highlight the words that he thought his students didn't know, and then ask them if they could find out the definition or the meaning by context. So he wrote the list on the board. He asked his students if he knew what each word meant. Since the students didn't answer, he provided the definition, and that was his class. So he thought that that was the way to teach reading. So actually, well, he lacked the skills to teach. He didn't know how to do it. He knew he spoke English because he's North American, but he didn't know how to teach. And he was not aware of that because he thought his students were kind of lazy or not interested about English, and it was not that the case. The readings that he chose were not interesting for his students, and the strategies, the activities he took to the class were not motivating for the students to learn, and they were not appropriate to teach reading. That's what happened in that case. But well, the idea of the exercise was to see that the way we can identify that teacher, we can classify him, like describe him, identify him because of the way he teaches, his tone of voice, his proxemics, uh, the activities he takes to the class. So we can agree on something because of our culture. Maybe for other cultures, he could be a good teacher. I know Chinese people don't like to, or they consider that the teacher is the one who needs to speak all the time, and the students are the ones that who need to listen almost all the time. So interaction in Chinese classes is not that important or is not considered appropriate. So it's also connected to the culture. But definitely we all agree on the same about this way of teaching. It's not efficient. He's not gonna get students to learn or at least to speak as he wanted. Here we have other questions. So please read them and tell me your answers.
Well, the truth is, up to the point that I watched the video was around 4.5 minutes. I didn't get to see much about what the students were doing. But I can certainly say that students were not that engaged in the sense that there was not much feedback when he was asking questions or providing examples. But I didn't see students actually.
Yeah,
I don't know if actually like further in the video there's a take and or a panning on the students.
yes. He had around 7, 10 students.
Oh,
So
17. Okay.
no, seven or 10 students.
Oh, 7 or 10. Okay.
So later in the video, you could see the students, but almost all the class was the same. So he asked them if they knew the meaning of the words, and since the students didn't answer anything, he started to give examples and give definitions. Well, he
Well, I
interacted.
guess once again, I didn't see what they were doing, but what talking about being engaged. If I were to see or to say if a student is engaged, is I would expect a lot of questions, follow-up questions, providing examples, students actually providing the definitions for each one of the words, making contrasts to a word that is similar, providing synonyms. So I didn't actually hear students doing all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to be honest with you, I actually heard more the animals than the students do
Yeah.
some type of interaction.
Now the dogs were engaged.
Yeah.
No, that yeah. So it was kind of I
That
think
was
it
good,
was
Leonardo.
frustrating for him too because actually he was, if I'm not wrong, he was an architect, but he was hired in that school to teach English or reading classes. And it was frustrating for him because he didn't know how to do it.
But
And
was there even a coordinator there or somebody observing classes or seeing it or asking around because was it his first day? Had he been there for like 5 months already? I mean, all those questions come to mind.
yeah,
Because if you tell me first day, first time, I said, okay, he can. I mean, because I believe teachers, we are able to improvise more than anybody else in the world because our students change. And if something's not functioning or like if you don't have internet and your activity was a video, you got to do something. You just can't sit there and complain. So,
yeah,
you know,
no,
I scroll through the video and he's even showing them the text on a computer screen on a laptop where I'm sorry, you can't even see it.
uh-huh.
He didn't even print the material for the students.
Yeah,
So you mean,
he lacked the skills. He didn't know how to teach. He just knew how to speak because he
The,
was North American and he was
the
hired
teacher
at that school.
was that place an actual classroom? I mean, you're saying that that's a school and that was a classroom in a school.
Right.
Was it?
Yes, that's right.
Because I mean, the little that I could see, it wasn't anything like a classroom.
Yeah, it was a classroom. It is at a school uh close to Bogota. I think it's Cota or well, Chia, I don't know. It's a school, yeah. It's a
Okay. All
school
right.
with a few students and as far as I know, he he was hired before that before that class was recorded. He had been a teacher for like 6 months.
wow,
Mm.
Yeah, so uh, the idea of the research was to find out the problems that or the type of interaction that was being promoted in class. Because as I told you, students were able to communicate orally uh, in surveys, in the interviews with students. They were able to answer in English or give their opinions about his English class or their English class. So they were actually able to communicate in English, but in that class, the interaction uh, was only teacher-student, and because of the lack of strategies, the teacher had to promote other types of interaction because he didn't know how to teach. But this is, I mean, if I took this video to the class was to show you that uh, in that case, the teacher positioned himself as a person who was able to teach and I mean, he didn't know what he was doing wrong. He didn't know why his students were not taught. Sometimes
Mhm.
that happens to teachers that are new teachers, as Leonardo asked or was wondering if the teacher was new at school, if that was his first class. It might happen to people who study to be teachers and is their first lesson. Sometimes they are just trying different things till they get to the ones that work. Um,
But could I say something about it?
yes, I know.
I know that, I mean, teaching skills is something that you learn and actually you sharpen your skills with experience and time and reflection and reading and colleagues and many more things. However, I also know that there are some logic behind it. What I mean is sometimes I have invited people coming over to our classrooms in my school, and they are not teachers. It could be parents, it could be actually a provider for school, it could be anybody. And the surprise is they come into a classroom and they do certain things that a teacher would do, and they don't have any training. So I know that any professional is not ready or trained to be a teacher, but I've also seen not teachers coming into classrooms and follow certain logics that would invite people to participate, would actually have students working by pairs. They would actually create an environment where students would feel uh, safe and happy to ask questions. So I don't know what that is. I mean,
Yeah,
it takes training to develop some people's skills and knowledge. However, some people just walk into a room, a classroom, and can create such an environment and activities that you would say, wow, it's like he's cut out to be a teacher.
yeah, you are right. Some people don't study to be teacher, and they know how to do it. That happens too. But in the case of this teacher, as I told you, he was an architect, and so probably he was in. I don't know the reason why he was in Colombia, but that was the case that he was teaching there, and he had a problem with that lesson. I don't know if he continued being a teacher at that place. Uh, I knew his case because I was tutoring a student who was working on that research to find out or to characterize the interaction that that teacher was promoting in his class. So uh, at the end, well, that research, the conclusion was that because of the type of questions he asked, he was not promoting interaction among the students, and he was not getting what he needed. That was students learning and students interacting and speaking in class. Um, does anybody can help me to read this? Can anybody please help me to read this? This
Should I, teacher?
yes, please. Hi.
Reasons to study teacher discourses. Research suggests that teacher discourses or language can contribute to uneven expectations for students in schools, such as when teachers use language that favors students more like themselves. It also suggests that when teachers examine their own discourses, they may better understand who they are as teachers and how their discourses, ways of speaking, listening, reading, and or writing integrated with ways of acting, interacting, valuing, feeling, dressing, thinking, and believing might lead to inequity in the classroom. As teachers think about and work against such discourses, they can provide fair learning opportunities for all students in schools. According to Camper and Candler, 2004, Hall Jansen, Joswick, Wortham, and Mosley, 2010. G 2012 also asserted that as individuals become knowledgeable about theories of discourses, individuals have an obligation to reflect on discourses.
Well, thank you, Jairo. What ideas come to your mind when you read that these courses might lead to inequity in classrooms? What
Uh,
What
I
do you think?
guess, could I?
Yes, yes.
I guess these courses somehow, it's gonna sound funny, but talk about yourself. Your discourse will actually let other people know what you believe in. And according to those beliefs, you're in a position of power in the classroom. Whether you wanted it or not, you're the teacher, and when you walk into a classroom, there's certain power that comes with you.
Mm-hmm.
So you have this power that sometimes you favor, as it's stated there. You may be you may favor some students over other students that somehow would be more like you or would have or some beliefs. So that's something that you really have to be careful about it. Ricardo Romero, who's a person who knows about teaching English here in Colombia, once said that even when you're going to provide examples or the questions that you want to give students, you should be very careful because in every single piece of language that you provide your students, you're just selling an idea. uh, for instance, if you were to be teaching comparatives and you don't believe or you dislike motorcycles, your examples would be like motorcycles are more dangerous than cars. And without thinking about it, you'll be selling the idea because the students are there listening to you and you have the power to influence. Eventually they would actually somehow believe what you believe, that motorcycles are more dangerous than cars. And for that matter, you would constantly, if you're not aware of this, you would constantly be in your discourse selling ideas. Of course, some of the students are going to be closer to believing your ideas than others, and then it's when you can actually separate students and be more a teacher for some students than for others. So that's really interesting, and as it says, an obligation for you to be very careful. Once again, even when you're planning your the sentences you're gonna give your students, the questions you're gonna give them. Um, Look, some students may be a little bit more sensible to some of your examples, and that's something that as teachers we don't usually do, and the invitation is for us to be very careful about those discourses. Same as if you're a sexist, or if you are racist,
Mhm.
or if you have strong opinions about a community, or well, there's so many different ways that you can influence a student that talking about these courses is really important.
Mhm.
um, I once had a teacher who claimed to be a Christian, as in Cristiano Evangelico, and we many parents complain about it. He would come to me and say, "Oh, but believe me, I'm not openly talking about my belief, my religious beliefs." But when I walked into his classroom for a couple of classes, oh my God, I mean, every example, every quote, every question was related to his beliefs. He just didn't notice it.
Exactly. That's difficult. It's difficult
It
to
is.
be critical about ourselves. Uh, Maybe an exercise that can help us is to video record our lessons and watch them. And then we will find out interesting things about ourselves as teachers. It's like to have
Teacher,
a
let me.
mirror there.
I, I have something to say. I agree with Heido. You got to be respectful. You got to be cautious with what you say, especially your beliefs. But as a teacher, we also have to question our students and expose them to situations where they got to learn to listen, express their opinion respectfully, and also be able to criticize and give a point. So I can also bring a controversial topic to class, but at the same time allow my students to respect their positions of their classmates, because religion is one of those, politics is another one, but you got to let them hear it, because in real life you also hear that all the time, so they also got to learn how to deal with that.
Yeah,
Because
but
if I adapt my class just so everybody's happy and nobody feels bad with news, or if a book says something, I have an for example, we have an IB book and the book says something about identities, and they feel offended because it's the gay pride flag on the book. They gotta learn to deal with it, because in society we see the flag everywhere.
well, I think what you mentioned is important because debates promote respect for the difference, right? For different opinions. But Jairo's comment was related to the idea that this teacher was selling his beliefs. because of
Okay,
the number of times she mentioned that because of the power she had as being the teacher of the class. So with kids, we need to be even more careful because we can sell the ideas to them, as Jairo mentioned, and but with adults, we can take those topics to classroom, and it's gonna be like easier because each one has already like their beliefs, their ways of thinking and opinions, and well, anyway, it's as Jairo mentioned, we need to be careful about the words we use in class because of
And
the
and
because
and
it,
if I,
some people might feel connected with our ideas, and others might feel that they are being that we are can be disrespectful, or that we can discriminate or something like that. So that's
and I agree with Leonardo in the sense that we should actually consciously, I mean, being aware of every now and then, if not often, bring in some controversial topics so that we can teach our students to be, well, number one, open-minded enough to entertain uh, different points of view. But the thing about these courses, and as once again Ricardo Romero used to say, these courses are not they're not something explicit that you bring in and let everybody know that this is what we're talking about. These courses, I mean, are somehow implicit, and they are not so obvious, I mean, to identify. So once again, even students won't notice. I mean, they will not consciously notice that there's something going on. But as you do this over a period of a bimester, maybe a year, maybe 2 years, eventually this is going to sell an idea that no one is really putting on the table. You know, it's something that is not hidden, but it's something that is so subtle sometimes that they're not easy to spot. And you may be weighing the balance. I mean, to one side, and that's why it's so important.
mhm. Well, I would like you guys to think about two groups of students. The ones that we classify as good students and the ones that we classify as students who need a lot of work. How can our discourses be unequal or with those types of students? What types of situations or words or attitudes can teachers have in class that might create inequality in the among these two types of students?
Teacher, I think for some students, the teacher is like the idol for them. It's like
Hmm.
the main person. Like for example, with kids, sometimes they prefer to do what the teacher says than what the parent says. So it,
Yeah,
it
for
depends on how they connect with that teacher.
for little kids appreciate a lot teachers' positive comments, while adolescents appreciate a lot their peers' comments or positive positive comments. So yeah, right. But let's think about a teacher who gives the floor to those students that are good ones, that and the ones that are that need more work, that are behind, are in a way uh, like on one side of the class, and the teacher doesn't pay much attention to them. So that might happen also. And that's something that we need to reflect about in our classes. Sometimes we might give the floor more to those that are the good ones that speak and that have the answer, and the ones that need more work, more help. We won't ask them the questions. In the research about this class, other thing that the researcher identified was that the teacher gave more the floor to the boys than the girls. So that might happen. That also something that we need uh, to find out if we do that in our classes, if we benefit more a group of students.
And how about teacher?
Yes.
How about those teachers who use words? I mean, let's say students may have different learning styles. Some will be more visual or auditory or kinesthetic. And a specific teacher who he himself or she herself have a very specific learning style. For instance, those teachers who are kinesthetic and use many more words that kinesthetic learners would relate to. So, as for that matter, he would be favoring those type of students, or any type of learning style. That was something else that I once read, and it's really interesting. As I'm a teacher, but I'm also a learner, and as a learner, I have a very specific learning style, and I would tend more to use certain words where that some students will be able to relate more to, or not even the words, but actually the exercises, right? I mean, if I'm a kinesthetic learner, I will have my students move around, but if I'm a visual learner, I will have, I mean, different and boards and boards filled up with my writing. So that's another way to favor
Mhm.
more a group of students than other groups.
Exactly. The ones that match your learning style. So
Uh-huh.
we might favor the students that match our learning styles if we take to the classroom only the activities that worked
For me.
for us when we studied. Or if we use only a way to correct students, the one that worked for us, and we don't try others that might be good for other students. If we only correct by saying the right way to say something, or the right sentence, and we don't promote peer correction, or we don't promote a self-correction, or other types of correcting mistakes, we might favor only the students that learn with the type of correction that we as learners use when we were students. So right, so uh, that also might cause inequality if we don't think about different styles of learning in the classroom.
And teacher, I once visited this class. I mean, I did some observing in this class, and this teacher, he was teaching a third grade class English, and it happened to be that we had a transfer student. I mean, the student had just got to school from Barranquilla. She was a very bright student. She had a very good level of English. And I remember that the topic was given directions, and especially using the points of the compass, the points in the compass, north and south and east. And then this teacher, she had a beautiful class, and she was giving examples on, all right, if you're located here in this place, and if you wanted to go to this place, which way would you take? It happened to be that she was only using examples from Cajicá and Chia, where most of the students were really familiar with the setting. And she didn't at the time realize that she had a student who had no clue whatsoever about those places and how to get from one class to another. So actually, by providing only those examples, the only possible outcome was that this bright student who knew a lot of English, she couldn't actually participate. She didn't. She was unable, just because the teacher had chosen examples that would work for 99% of the students, but these one students couldn't do it. So that would be also something to take into account.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So there are many things that teachers need to take into account in class. It's not an easy task because of the different people that we have in class. So we cannot do the same or address to the same to all of them, or do the same things, or patient, is needs to be, it's very important to deal with different types of, with different personalities, etc. So it's not an easy job because of that, I would say.
Yes, teacher, I am agree with you and my partners and Jairo because I am clear that there are some students who develop their skill more easily than others. And it's our duty to implement more strategies for these students who are falling behind and use other tools, different tools.
Exactly. So if we are, we think about reality, and we teach at a school where we have, let's say, 4 classes per day, different levels, and besides we have 30 students in each classroom. So it would be impossible for us like to plan 40 with different activities that can cover all the styles. That's the reason why methodologies like working with projects are more uh, useful, because project-based learning help students, or respect students likes, and also students pace of learning and style. So the role of the teacher is more, is a different one, as the teacher who plans the lesson and takes everything planned to the classroom. So uh, it's just a comment to tell you that because of the difficulty, number of lessons that we might have in a class in a day, number of students, those methodologies that uh, promote different ways of learning and different paces might be more effective in classrooms. Well, I'm sorry, I have to stop the encounter because I have to start a new one in 5 minutes. Uh, I don't know if maybe you have questions about what we discussed tonight.
No, teacher, everything's clear.
Thank
I
you.
might have a question here, but it's not related to today's class. It's about we have to upload the infographics, right?
Yeah, yes,
And I don't remember how, but we were supposed to have created Turnitin accounts, right? I, I actually uploaded twice because in the first one it said that it was queued, but since I had not agreed to the licensing,
uh,
it was something like that. So I've been asking everybody. Leonardo actually provided me help with help, but I don't know. I still get that message. So I don't know if it's
well,
getting through. I mean, if you're getting the actual work or if you're not getting it, and if it's gonna
yeah,
be a
yeah, it
situation.
was published. And the thing is that for all the virtual rooms, you will have Turnitin, which is a program that was uh, that is in the virtual rooms, because it's to check students' writings and find out if there is plagiarism. So
Right.
anyway, if you don't accept, or if you accept, your task is published. So
But I mean, how do I accept the license?
That's
How do I,
For that, you have to talk to Jorge, Jairo.
Jorge
To
Munoz?
Jorge Munoz. You have to,
Okay.
yes, he will solve it.
Okay. Alrighty. Thank you.
yeah, but we could read your task. We could read your
Okay.
infographic. Yeah, actually, I uploaded yesterday night the feedback
Oh, you
of
did?
that. Yeah, it's
Yes.
there. So
Okay.
yeah,
Where is it?
so
Okay. Now we know what we're gonna be doing next.
Yeah, so you are working this week on a reading on a task that is that you need to work in groups, right?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
So yeah. So yeah, I'm sorry, I need to stop now the encounter.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, teacher.
Thank
You are
Thank you,
you.
Thank
welcome.
you,
teacher.
Good,
teacher.
everybody.
Bye bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye.